Well, alrighty then. Title of the video: How did I meet my wife, Baby May? Just a real quick shout out before we get going here. The inspiration to do this video was brought on by a brand new member, a gentleman by the name of Alan. I'll leave his last name out of it. So thank you very much for the conversation today, Alan. Him and I chatted on Messenger a little bit. He showed some love for the channel. And I said, what would you like for me to talk about? You got any ideas for videos? And he goes, yeah, I'd like to know how you met your wife, because I think she's really beautiful, and I think you guys are a nice couple, and I'm kind of envious of you, to be honest. And I said, okay, cool. I'd be happy to do that for you. I think it's been a long time since I've done a video like this about myself and how I met May. I think I did one about 3 or 4 years ago, so time to catch up. There's been a lot of new subscribers, a lot of new members, and sometimes I should go over these kind of topics more than once because people haven't seen 3 and 4 year old videos that I have out there. Okay, so that being said, I had to do a little bit of research and remind myself of some numbers, and some of them really took me by surprise because I'd forgotten about it. But if I set the stage as to what I was doing prior to meeting May and sort of some of the events and my mindset, and then we'll get right to where I met her, how I met her, and what we've done since. So I'll go as quickly as possible here for you. I was divorced in America. I had raised my kids. They were up and out of the house. And I had a hard time believing this when I researched it, but it was true. I lived alone for 15 years when I was in the States prior to moving out to the Philippines and retiring. I was still working and busting a move and buying stuff and paying mortgages and car payments and all that happy stuff. And I did not have any interaction with any kind of women on any level other than at work or on the freeway when they cut me off. I beat my horn at them. And at the market, that was it. I mean, nothing was going on at all. And I had zero desire to get involved with anybody again. Let's just say that I'd had enough of having enough. And I said, you know what, Paul, we're better off just leaving that off the table. You're obviously not very good at making those choices, so let's just stay alone. And so I enjoyed my time alone, even though it was 15 long years. And I continued to work and work and work and work. And then I began to not resent being alone, but I began to resent the fact that I was working so hard and putting in so much time and stress and energy and thought into earning money to pay for things, pay for stuff. And it struck me as I looked around, as I grew 15 years older, so did everything else around me that I worked so hard to buy. And like me, it got old and worn out, and a lot of it needed to be replaced or repaired or insured or maintained. And I just felt myself going to work, getting some money in, and then going like this with the money to have an object of some sort that I didn't really need, that wasn't fulfilling anything in my life. And the idea of minimalism just sort of to sink into my psyche. And I thought, you know, I don't own this stuff. It owns me. And I'm going to work not for me anymore, but I got to pay for that, or I got to fix it, or I got to insure it, or I got to put gas in it. And so it was a good time. It was a good time to kind of purge a lot of old ideas and notions that I had. And then I'll just fast forward to, we got through all that. My mindset had changed. I knew that I was coming to Asia because I had visited here before. I knew that I loved the vibe. I knew I loved the people, the lifestyle. I was truly thinking Thailand. But as I did my research, the Philippines kept popping up. Two primary reasons that I got sold on the Philippines was they speak English and the visa was very, very simple. And so I started, as 2 years out came along. I was 2 years away from retiring. I started to YouTube best places to retire. And again, up comes Little Dumaguete and the Philippines for those very reasons. Visa, English, cost of living, budget, safety, weather, all of that. And wouldn't you know that number one on the list back then, on Forbes' list, was the Philippines. And number one city of all places was Dumaguete. So I then drilled down and zeroed in on YouTube videos from the Philippines, not just Dumaguete, but the Philippines. And there were 3 or 4 vloggers at the time that I watched religiously. Now there's about 300 or 400, but I digress. Back then I would watch these dudes and they would go over a lot of cool stuff. They would talk about how to transfer money. They would talk about how to set up a bank account. They would talk about the visa process, immigration, cost of living. Every month they would always do a budget video. And they would go over their rent and their electric and this and food and blah, blah, blah. And back then, the average guy, all 3 of them or 4 of them that I was watching, all came in at about $1,000 a month. And other guys were coming in a lot lower. But these guys were the most believable to me. And so I figured, okay, that my Social Security check will cover at least $1,000, plus I should be able to save a fair amount of money over and above that when if I come out here. So I said to myself, we're going to unload all this stuff, which I did. Everything got sold, given away, donated, whatever. And I came to the Philippines with a backpack and a suitcase. And I said to myself, when I get there, all I want to do is set up, pitch my tent, set up the campground, get settled in, and live my life just like I've lived the last 15. I do not want to get involved with a woman. I had seen the other guys as girlfriends. They were all very beautiful. I was attracted to them. I am a guy, but I said, you know what, Paul, that's never ended well. So what you want to do is you want to come over to the Philippines. You want to just set yourself up, forget about the girls, go about your business, do some exploring, get to know the place, and live your life as small as possible. Buy as few things, only what you need, not anything extravagant. 6 weeks after I moved here, I moved in the first girl I met. So that's how long that lasted. And I have to confess that she was introduced to me by my neighbor. She was drop dead gorgeous. She had a great sense of humor. She was a great cook. She was very affectionate. She was bubbly. She was fun. She was the antithesis of what I was used to in the States. And did I mention she was beautiful? And so there was rule number 1 got broken right away. And it didn't take me long to realize that as time progressed, that in spite of all those wonderful qualities, I started to see some cracks in the wall. And there was something in my gut that didn't set right. And I came up with a little process in my head. And I said, okay, after a period of time went by, a few months, I would look at her and I would say, can I picture myself with her in a year or 5 years or even beyond that? Is she the type of person that if I got sick that she would hang around and take care of me. Am I the kind of guy, or is she the kind of woman that if the same befell her, that I would be willing to do that for her? Would she be there for me if things got tough? Would she be there for me only if things are good? All these little questions that came up. And the end of the day, I looked at her and I said to myself, Self, I don't picture myself with her in a year. I am starting to see things where I am becoming unhappy a couple of days a week due to whatever her behavior was, wants, desires, attitude. There were some cracks, like I say, in the wall. And so a period of time went by and I told myself, you know what? Let's just cut this off. We've made a mistake here. There's no sense in me knowing that I'm setting myself up for future failure, that soon, if not later, there's going to be more bad days with her than good days. And why would I want to prolong that for me? And why the hell would I want to take someone like her off the market and just waste her time when I'm unhappy and I'm going to start getting snarky with her? So we're going to need to split. And that was my idea. And she wasn't really happy about it, but I insisted on it. And it's not like I booted her out the door. I gave her some money, more than she showed up with, enough to live on for 2 months. I made sure that she had a place to go to, a boarding house or a room that a girlfriend that we knew from a friend that had a room for her to stay in. She moved there. She took all of her stuff. She left. We had this kind of heartfelt bye-bye. And 3 days later, she moved in with another foreigner. And so I said, you know what, Paulie boy? It was good that you trusted your gut, because even though she had all of these qualities, over time, I found that there was just these deficiencies that were popping up, but mostly it was just this gut feeling of, do we have a real and true connection? And the answer was no. And that nail was driven in when 3 days later, she moved in with another guy that I personally knew. So back then, I was also very cognizant of the fact that in those days, a foreigner was pretty much the hot commodity. I knew that I had more value back then when it came to meeting a female. So I still was reticent about getting involved with anybody. I felt like I had learned my lesson. I said, okay, Paul, you made a mistake. You've been there. You've done that. Let's not repeat the same thing. That's insanity. And for over a year, that's exactly what I did. I lived like I did for the 15 years back in the States. I was simply a bachelor. I was alone. I had a lot of friends. I had a lot of guy friends, and I had a lot of female friends. And a lot of the female friends were just great to hang out with. I had the time of my life with them. Would I pick up a check here and there? Absolutely. But it wasn't big dollars or anything like that. I was having fun. They were teaching me the culture. They were teaching me languages. They were taking me places that I never would have known about. And so, did they use me a little bit in the process? Yeah. But was I using them? Yeah, because they were my tour guides, and I was picking up the check. And to me, it was a balance. And I also had a few friends that were a little bit more than friends along the way. I did not have a high body count, but there were women that became more than just friends. Some of them were with me for 48 hours, and we both decided, well, this really isn't, we're not really compatible. And we left as friends. Other people I was with for 2, 3, 4 months, and same thing would just come to light that I would look at her and I would say, can I see myself with this woman forever? And the answer would ultimately be no. And I would do the exact same thing that I did with number one. I would say, you know what? This isn't working out. I'm sorry. I hope we can still be friends. I would always make sure that we left amicably, that she was not being, I wasn't taking her off the market. Explain that to her. You know, you're gorgeous. You have a lot to offer. Get out there. I'm sure somebody's going to, and they did. They went out and they were successful with other guys. More power to them. And I always made sure that they were, you know, not financially hurt in any way, shape, or form. And then, how did I meet May? And what set her apart from the others? I was out to dinner with a friend of mine and his girlfriend. And I was the proverbial third wheel. It was them and me, because I didn't have a girlfriend. Remember, I'm now single. And so his girlfriend asked me what all Filipinos ask you is, do you have a girlfriend? You know, I said no. And she said, why not? And I said, well, I just haven't met anybody that I feel compatible with. Maybe you know somebody I would be compatible with. And wouldn't you know that she said, I think I do. And it turned out to be May. So May and I were connected via this woman. We were the proverbial blind date. And when we first met, we didn't exactly hit it off immediately. May was much more infatuated with me than I was with her. I always felt that she was very beautiful, but we had communication issues. We had some other little issues where we weren't on the same page, and I did not move her in right away. She had a job. She was working as a caterer, and for 6 months, she maintained that job, and we maintained separate residences. And then we got to know one another. And what I got to know about her when she would come over and spend the night on her day off or whatever, was that she had a ritual. And it was, she had, number one, a relationship with God. And that was, and she made it very clear to me that that's number one in my life. And funny thing, it's the same way I think. I think that God comes first. She would take it one step further than I did. She was much more disciplined. She would quietly go every morning, sometimes for 5 minutes, sometimes for 25 minutes. And she would just excuse herself, and she had a little prayer book. And she actually used to go in the old apartment and not lock herself, but she'd close the door in a closet so that she could be alone without any distraction, and she would talk to her Creator. And she would hand off to Him her problems. She would ask for blessings for people. What she prays about and says or thinks is between her and God. I've never once asked her, but I know that that's generally the rule of thumb. When I pray, that's what I pray for. That, you know, here's my problems. You're bigger than any of my problems are, so I'm going to hand them off to you. I pray for the people that I love, and that your will be done in our life. And that's how we operate. She does it differently than I do, but we've still come to the same point. She has never been flashy. The other ladies that I knew were always, not always is too big a word, but would generally have the nails, the hair, the eyebrows, the this, the jewelry, the bling, the latest phone. May's phone was about 6 years old when I met her and barely could hold a charge. And never once did it even occur to her to ask me to get her a new phone. And she actually had money that she could go out and buy a new phone. But in her mind, as long as hers was working, long as she plugged it in long enough, it worked fine. And she didn't use it that much. It was just texting back and forth to me and her family. I learned about May's history. May always had a bad shoulder. She called it broke. I said, what's wrong with your shoulder? Why does it hurt? She says, it's broke. And I thought, what? I thought she broke it. And I learned later that if you learn how to speak May, broke means that it's hurt or it's spoiled. Like she'll call spoiled food broke. This cauliflower is broke. Her shoulder is broke. It's worn out. It hurts. I said, how did that happen? Did you fall down? Did you have an accident? No. When she was 10 years old, she used to hoist big sacks of corn on that shoulder and hump it a mile uphill or downhill, whatever it was, because that's where they lived. They lived in the mountains, and their family were farmers. And she would drop it, and then she'd do it again. And, you know, at the age of 10, she was humping big bags of corn up and down a mountain and bringing in pails of water because they didn't have running water. At the tender age of 15, she was shipped off with her auntie to go work as a caretaker in Manila. And she did that for over 10 years. Her paycheck was something ridiculous, like 6,000 pesos a month, maybe $100 at the time. And the majority of that she sent home to her sisters so they could go to college. And she kept just a little bit for herself. And she would occasionally go out and splurge and buy a magazine, a fashion magazine of pretty girls wearing pretty clothes. She had an infatuation with bikinis. If you know her now, you understand what I'm talking about. And the rest she saved. And I saw this discipline in her. And I offered her back in the day, I said, you know what? How about a mani-pedi? How about a spa day? Why don't you go get your nails done and your feet done and your eyebrows done and eyelashes done and some lipstick and the makeup and all that? Wouldn't that be fun? So I thought all girls love that. I wanted to treat her to something. I forget what the occasion was. And she said, no. I don't like that. I am what I am. I am a simple woman. I wash my own clothes. Why would I want long nails? They're just going to fall off. Why do I need all this makeup? It's just going to get washed off in a day or two. It's a waste of money. Why wear lipstick? That's plenty. If my hair is my hair. Clothes. She would only get turned on when we went by an Okai store. An Okai store is where you could buy pre-loved clothes. She'd see a cute pair of shorts, or God forbid a bikini. And I could see her looking at that, and I would go, you want that? And she'd go, well, it's up to you. And so I would say, okay, why don't you go ahead and help yourself to that. Not since I have known her, other than pocket money, has May had her hand out and asked for anything. One time, I was sending her home before we even moved in together. My scooter broke down, and I called down a trike to take her home because my bike was broken. And I went to reach and give her cab fare, trike fare. And she said, oh, it's okay. I got my own money. That was the first time I tried to give her money when we were dating, and she wouldn't take it. So, she has had an opportunity living with me to kind of go up the food chain as far as the hair and the nails and the outfits and all that hoopla. She still purchases all of her clothes secondhand. I think 2 or 3 times she's bought something new for her wedding dress was new, but she bought it at Okai Okai for 600 pesos. And so it was new, but it was still at an Okai Okai store. How that works, I'm not sure. But it was brand new dress, but it was 600 pesos. That's 10 bucks, 11 bucks for her wedding dress when we got married. Whenever somebody has a hard time, one of her friends has a hard time, if she meets somebody and they're all blinged out, they got the bracelets and the watches and the shoes and the purse and the two-tone hair and all that stuff, she really just can't mix with that. She has a hard time respecting them for some reason. She just doesn't think that they have the same morals or principles that she adheres by. But when she meets someone that's simple and is like her, comes from a similar background, she becomes very akin to them and very attached to them. When other girls are gossiping about other girls, she keeps her mouth shut. And when somebody that she knows and cares for is hurt or been emotionally damaged or is going through a hard time, she doesn't pick up the phone and call 3 other girls, which is the norm out here, and chismis about it and say, you know, Betty Lou, blah, 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 blah. No. I've seen her do it over and over and over again. She'll call Betty Lou herself, who's down and out, and she will offer her a word of encouragement, and she will offer to pray for her. And she won't offer her any money. She doesn't offer her any solutions. She just offers her self. I'm available if you need me. She has done the exact same thing for me since the day I've met her. She has wanted to give more than she has ever taken. And it has caused me to want to give more than I take from her. And that, my friends, is how I met and why I am married to Baby May. All right, I'll see you in the next video.